Hi, I'm Sherri Greenberg, Director of the Center for Politics and Governance at the LBJ School of Public Affairs. Today, we will conclude with our third and final analysis of the presidential debates. Later, I will be joined by Associate Professor Alan Kuperman, a foreign affairs expert. Last night was the third act in the presidential debate plays. What we saw was theater. We had appealing to the audience, great lines, and some real role reversals.
Got to champion small business. Small business is where jobs come from. 2/3 of our jobs come from small businesses. New business formation is down at the lowest level in 30 years under this administration. I want to bring it back and get back good jobs and rising take-home pay.
So, this third and final act, this presidential debate, was supposed to be about foreign policy. But here we go again talking about domestic policy. Why? Well, first of all, we know that the economy is a big issue, has been all along in this presidential race. Also, this is Mitt Romney's comfort zone. He is comfortable talking about his business experience in the economy and, let's not forget, appealing to the audience, the battleground states. Ohio is very important, and so is this discussion to the state of Ohio.
I will stand with Israel if they are attacked. And this is the reason why working with Israel, we have created the strongest military and intelligence cooperation between our two countries in history. In fact, this week, we'll be carrying out the largest military exercise with Israel in history, this very week.
Both Obama and Romney mentioned Israel dozens of times in the debate last night. Why? Well, it was a foreign affairs debate, and the Mideast is important, and of course, our partnership with Israel is very important. But beyond that, this is a get out the vote campaign. We're down to a few battleground states, Florida, Ohio, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and those states have a lot of Jewish voters. Jewish voters historically have a high rate of turnout as far as going to the polls. However, will this work? Jewish voters are not necessarily single-issue voters.
You know, if we're going to talk about trips that we've taken, when I was a candidate for office, first trip I took was to visit our troops. And when I went to Israel as a candidate, I didn't take donors. I didn't attend fundraisers. I went to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum there, to remind myself the nature of evil and why our bond with Israel will be unbreakable. And then I went down to the border towns of Sderot, which had experienced missiles raining down from Hamas. And I saw families there who showed me where missiles had come down near their children's bedrooms. And I was reminded of what that would mean if those were my kids, which is why, as president, we funded an Iron Dome program to stop those missiles. So that's how I've used my travels.
So what you see there is what I've considered the most poignant moment in the debate and the most politically salient moment in the debate. And that's because, in general, the American public does not vote on foreign policy. But one of the few issues that some Americans do vote on is the Israel issue. That's true for evangelical Christian voters and for some Jewish voters. And President Obama is considered vulnerable on this issue because three of the things that Governor Romney mentioned there are true. President Obama has apologized for the actions, essentially, of his predecessor, George W. Bush, for being overly aggressive and militaristic. Secondly, President Obama did explicitly distance himself from Israel at the beginning of his administration. It was a strategy. He thought that if he could look like more of an even-handed neutral broker, not simply an ally of Israel, that would bring the Palestinians and the Arab states into the peace process. And then thirdly, President Obama has not agreed with Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu on the Iran nuclear question, where Netanyahu said, let's draw a line, a red line, and if Iran crosses it, then there's going to be military action against Iran. And President Obama refused to draw that line. And so for those three reasons, President Obama is considered vulnerable on the Israel issue. And Romney hit him very hard with that. But it appears that President Obama was prepared for that attack, and he had an excellent counterattack, which was to say that, in fact, he had visited Israel, not as president, but previously as a candidate. And that in contrast to Romney, who had used his visit recently to Israel for fundraising purposes, that President Obama said that he had visited Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem. And Jewish voters, evangelical voters know what that means and know how important that is. And so I think to an extent he inoculated himself on that criticism here. I would say, though, that President Obama does remain vulnerable to campaign advertising on that issue.
I don't want to have our military involved in Syria. I don't think there's a necessity to put our military in Syria at this stage, and I don't anticipate that in the future. As I indicated, our objectives are to replace Assad and to have in place a new government which is friendly to us, a responsible government if possible, and I want to make sure they get armed and they have the arms necessary to defend themselves, but also to remove Assad. But I do not want to see a military involvement on the part of our troops. And this isn't going to be necessary.
So this is a perfect example of what Governor Romney did all night in the debate. In reality, he has very large policy differences on foreign policy with President Obama, but over time and time again, he downplayed them. So, for example, on Syria, he's been quite clear that he has criticized the administration for not providing adequate weapons to the rebels in Syria. But here it looks as if he's saying, well, basically he would do exactly what the administration has done. That is, try to find rebels who are not Islamists and provide them small amounts of military aid, not put in place a no-fly zone, not do something more robust to overthrow this Iranian ally. And so what it seems that Governor Romney was doing all night was essentially saying, I am ahead in this campaign, and so only thing I need to do is avoid getting knocked out, as in a boxing match. And so what he essentially did is held Obama in a clinch and said, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you over and over again. No distance, no chance for Obama to get in that sort of knockout blow. And I think it was a good strategy for him politically, but the unfortunate thing is that for the American public, they didn't get to see really highlighted the very, very significant foreign policy differences between these two candidates. So as we see, except for the one dispute over Israel and the apology tour, most of the time during this debate for an hour and a half, the two candidates seem to agree. In reality, however, they have very different worldviews about how to approach foreign policy. So Mitt Romney has made clear in other venues that he believes that America should lead. That is, when there's a problem around the world, America, using its military might, using its economic might, should gather all the world and say, here's the best solution, and America should push that forward. By contrast, President Obama has said that America should, quote-unquote, lead from behind. That is, if there's a crisis somewhere, America shouldn't rush in with its own solution and try and organize the world around it. Instead, we should just sort of let things percolate for a while. Maybe somebody else will take the lead. Maybe another European power, like France and Britain did in Libya, or maybe some regional power, like Turkey seems to be doing in Syria. And President Obama believes that will be cheaper. We can have a smaller military. And because we're not so intrusive around the world, we won't provoke so many enemies against us. By contrast, Governor Romney thinks that this is a dereliction of duty and a dereliction of leadership, and that by America not taking the lead, what we get is not others taking the lead, what we get is chaos. And Exhibit A for him would be Syria, where because the United States hasn't taken the lead in his view, what has happened is that we have a civil war that has killed over 30,000 people so far. It's spilling into Lebanon, it's spilling into Jordan, and it's potentially causing the entire region to explode. So that's a very stark difference in worldview between these two candidates. And the unfortunate thing for the American public is that they didn't get to see it in this debate because Governor Romney, as a strategy in the debate, decided that he would downplay those differences and downplay his criticism of the Obama administration.
The curtain has fallen on the third and final act of the presidential debates. We have confronted some very serious issues. We've also seen some role reversals, the demeanor, aggressive versus passive, first debate versus third debate, with Romney and Obama changing roles. We've had some big lines. The one-liners were here. But early voting has already started around the nation. Election Day is Tuesday, November 6th. It's time to go vote.